Last night was a big primary election night in 4 different states: Washington, Missouri, Michigan, and Kansas, with a special election in Ohio. There were lots of important races, and the results were a mixed bag, I believe, for progressives, but I want to give everyone a full picture in this recap, so let's dive right in. How about the good news first, shall we? Rashida Tlaib eked out her primary in Michigan's very blue 13th district. She is set to become the first Muslim woman to serve in Congress and the first Palestinian American to ever serve in Congress. How badly do we need more representation of the Palestinian perspective in Congress? Very badly, I would argue. And let's not get too hung up on her identity, which I know is all the mainstream media is going to focus on. She's a Justice Democrat. She's been endorsed by DSA chapters and Citizens United, Michael Moore, People for Bernie, and the list goes on and on and on. And she's running unopposed. She's even more likely than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is to win in November, barring some incredible disaster. Tlaib is a progressive candidate and a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, which endorsed her candidacy. Her campaign platform included securing a $15 minimum wage, protecting unions, and Medicare for all. She also supports overturning Trump's Muslim ban, dismantling detention centers, and securing a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. So that's some fantastic news out of Michigan. There were other Justice Democrats running in the state. Rob Davidson ran uncontested in the 2nd district, so obviously he won his Democratic primary. And there is some very interesting news in Michigan's 1st district from a Justice Democrat named Matt Morgan. He will, according to reports, be on the ballot in November after a write-in campaign. Democrat Matt Morgan says unofficial vote counts from Tuesday's primary show he will be on the ballot to face Republican Representative Jack Bergman in November's general election. In a formula set by the state of Michigan, Morgan must receive at least 5% of the total ballots cast in the race, with the most votes in the Democratic primary in Michigan's 1st. Whew. For example, if this year's gubernatorial race had 100,000 votes cast, which would be up 30+% from historic midterm primary averages, the threshold for Morgan to make the general election ballot would be 5,000. Each county's board of canvassers will meet Wednesday to review ballots before sending to the Michigan Board of Canvassers. Once certified, Morgan says he will officially be the Democratic nominee for November's general election. Now, Michigan's 1st is a pretty red district, but it was blue up until 2010. Why did Matt Morgan have to run as a write-in candidate? He used a P.O. box address on his nominating petition instead of his residential. Election laws are so weird and archaic. Anyway, it looks like he was successful, but the rest of the Justice Democrats in the state did not fare as well. Abdul Al-Sayed lost handily to Gretchen Whitmer, with Sri Thanadar basically splitting the progressive vote by masquerading as a Bernie crowd. He said Bernie all in his ads. Bernie actually endorsed Abdul Al-Sayed. Whitmer, a more centrist Democrat, will face the Trump-endorsed Republican Bill Schrute, not Dwight Schrute, in November. David Bennock lost in the 6th district, and Feiruz Saad lost in Michigan's 11th. So, not great news, but let's move on to Kansas because more bad news. Unfortunately, we finally have learned the results this morning after the new election machines in Kansas's 3rd were absurdly acting up. Brent Welder has lost. Sharice Davids narrowly beat Bernie Sanders-backed candidate Brent Welder for the nomination in Kansas's 3rd congressional district. Davids edged out progressive candidate Brent Welder by little over than 2,000 votes in a competitive race that was called Wednesday morning. Kevin Yoder, who represents that district now as a Republican, had a tough primary opponent too, but won with 68% of the vote. He will face Sharice Davids, whose policy positions are still a mystery to me, in November. This one was obviously a tough pill to swallow. I know that Brent ran an excellent campaign and he had been in the race for a long time. Sharice Davids only entered the race in February, and she got a good amount of financial backing, including from Emily's List, which has made a name for itself by endorsing all pro-choice women if they are conservative enough for them on the financial side. It's really a joke. They haven't endorsed Adrienne Bell in her Texas race, for example. Even Obama endorsed her. Emily's List, it outrages me, but I digress. The good news is that, as expected, progressive James Thompson, Justice Democrat, won his primary in the district over. However, there is some spooky news in Kansas's governor's race on the Republican side. This is still the unofficial count, but as of shooting this, Chris Kobach will win the primary with, by the unofficial count, just over 200 more votes than the incumbent Jeff Collier. Now, Collier's not a good man, and he's barely an incumbent. He was appointed after Trump appointed the former governor Brownback to this bizarre religious freedom ambassadorship after Brownback just basically bankrupted the state and then ran out. But Kobach is the face of voter suppression. He is the mastermind behind a great amount of the voter suppression in that state, in this country. And if he gets elected, he will make it his life's goal to never let another Democrat or progressive win in the state of Kansas ever again. Never let people of color have voting rights. So that is what we are dealing with here. On that light note, let's move on to Missouri. Justice Democrat Cori Bush lost an uphill battle to unseat incumbent William Lacey Clay. She lost by a lot, frankly, guys. But the other Justice Democrat running in Missouri won handily. Jamie Schoolcraft in Missouri's 7th district. He will face incumbent Billy Long in the general, so that's great news. And more great news out of Missouri. Black Lives Matter activists and other groups pushing for reforms of criminal policies got a big victory in St. Louis County. Longtime prosecuting attorney Bob McCulloch, who was criticized for his handling of the shooting of Michael Brown by a police officer in Ferguson, lost to Wesley Bell, who pledged to install a special independent prosecutor to investigate incidents of alleged police misconduct, not push for the death penalty against defendants, and eliminate cash bail. And voters decisively, 67.5% voted no, rejected Proposition A, which would have made Missouri the nation's 28th right-to-work state. It was a big victory for organized labor, which raised $16 million for the No on A campaign. So overall, it was a very good day for progressive politics in Missouri, even though Cori Bush did not get to the mountaintop, and obviously she was a fantastic candidate. And lastly, in terms of those 4 states, both non-incumbent Justice Democrats lost in Washington state. We still have the amazing Pramila Jayapal, of course, but both Sarah Smith and Dorothy Gasquet lost easily in their districts. So as of the making of this video, when we move, let's turn to the Ohio special election, it's apparently too close to call, with 3,435 provisional ballots that have yet to be counted, but some places are calling it for Tony Balderson, who is leading slightly, but it doesn't really matter too much in my view. There will be a rematch no matter what in November. However, it does spell some trouble for the GOP. O'Connor had no reason to be as competitive as he did in the district that former Republican U.S. Representative Pat Tiberi held since 2000 and hasn't elected a Democrat since 1982. Trump won the district by 11 percentage points in 2016. And in this special election, O'Connor has supposedly lost by less than 1 percentage point. Look, don't get complacent. We don't know if blue wave is imminent, but things like this are certainly really good signs. So I know it was a mixed bag of results. I'm particularly bummed about Brent Welder. It was a really close race, but keep fighting. There are more primaries coming up. Kenyella Ng in Hawaii on the 11th. More primaries. Pay attention and stay tuned on youtube.com/rebelhq, facebook.com/rebelhq if you're feeling crazy too.